Hi, I'm Linda Newnes and I'm going to present to you today the work we're doing at the University of Bath with the University of Surrey and the University of Bristol on creating a Transdisciplinary Engineering Index. And I've called this the route to self-assessment because effectively we want people to be able to use this index in a simple way and without hopefully too much effort. So today what I will cover is I'll obviously give you a background to myself so you know who I am and where I'm from and what I do. I'll then give you a little introduction to Bath, in case you don't know where Bath is, and the University of Bath, some facts and figures, one slide only, so don't worry too much. And then I'll talk to you about the Transdisciplinary Engineering Design Research Group. And I'll tell you what Team Trend are doing and why we're doing it and why we think it's important. I will then let you know about where we are in the progress of creating a Transdisciplinary Engineering Index. And throughout the presentation, so you get a bit of a change of voice, I will also give you some video examples of what we think are transdisciplinary engineering projects. So let's tell you about me. I'm Linda Newnes. I've actually been at the University of Bath since 1991, so I'm feeling a little bit old. I gained my PhD from Loughborough University, and it's in manufacturing systems. The majority of my research focuses on whole life value, looking at societal, cost, environmental impacts, and being able to measure these and take some trade-offs so we make informed decisions and hopefully the right decisions. But today I'll be presenting to you work that we've done on a project that we managed to get funded from the UK Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. It's called TREND. It's 1.8 million and it is basically focusing how can we train our engineers of the future to work in a transdisciplinary manner. So before I do this, let me tell you something about the City of Bath and the University of Bath, so you see where I live and what I do, and hopefully you'll come and visit us next year at TE2021. So City of Bath is actually one of the only cities where the whole city is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And I'll show you some lovely pictures here just to help you. The pictures on the left are from the University of Bath, and the picture on the right on Stonehenge is from one of my friends, Jeff Marshall. And if you want to see any of his pictures, just go to his Facebook page. There's a link there. So we have the Roman baths, we have the Bath Abbey, and we have the Circle as well. So if you do come to Bath, it's a wonderful city to visit, and there'll be lots for you and your family to do. Now, in terms of the university, we're actually over 50 years old. We were at an engineering college before then. Our Chancellor is Prince Edward's, and you'll see him in the top left picture there. He does look very regal. We have approximately 19,000 students at the university and around about 150 million in grant portfolio. And that research goes from social science to policy to environmental to engineering to everything, basically. And we do a lot of medical engineering work. Even though we don't have a medical school, we do a lot of medical engineering. And 87% of our research is international leading or world leading. And one of the things as well is, if you notice on the bottom two pictures, we have actually invested 450 million on our campus in the last decade. So to the right is a lot more of the new buildings, accommodation. And on the left, you see a lovely picture, especially which is useful in the summer. We do get sun in the UK sometimes. You can sit by the lake and do your studying. Some of the lecturers even give their lectures out there. I'm not that brave. Hi, and before I go into more detail about Trend, I also want to show to you what we're doing in terms of other activities within our Department of Mechanical Engineering. So I have one of our PhD students, Emmanuel, going to tell you about the EPSRC Centre for Doctoral Training in Advanced Automotive Propulsion Systems.
Complex problems such as achieving a sustainable automotive sector cannot be solved by engineers working alone. It requires a combined skills and knowledge of full range of stakeholders, including academic and industry experts, governments and customers. It needs a transdisciplinary engineering approach. Transdisciplinary engineering aims to create practical solutions to real-world challenges by integrating social science and traditional engineering approaches.
So let me tell you about Team Trend. And this is going to be the crux of our talk today. Trend is, as we say, designed beyond disciplines, and the whole purpose of this is we put a bid to the Engineering Physical Science Research Council saying we need engineers of the future. And these engineers actually need to be more than just singularly disciplined engineers. We still need these expertise, but we need engineers that can think beyond the disciplines and look at design and solve problems for how do we keep everyone fed? How do we get clean water to everyone? How can we actually handle a pandemic? And I'll give you a couple of videos through this presentation to show you how transdisciplinary engineering is really important to assisting with this pandemic. I thought I'd give you some of the team members here. If you have looked at the papers, you will see that a number of them do have papers already in the conference, and hopefully you've listened to their presentations. And I would also add, though I've listed the universities here, we're also working with Airbus, and we're working with Renishaw, and we're working with Cubic Innovation. So we have 3 core industrial partners as part of our project, and the wider industrial bits such as Aries and Arup and various other industrial companies that we're working with. 3 universities: Bath, Surrey, Bristol. So one of the things I often get challenged about is, well, transdisciplinary engineering, well, sure, that's an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense. How can you be transdisciplinary and be engineering? So what I would like to bring out is, though we are engineering based, so the majority of us, apart from Professor Parry, are actually in engineering faculties. When you start looking at our publications, you'll actually see we have quite a diverse range of activities that we undertake. So just because someone is placed in an engineering department does not actually mean they're all engineers. And often people go from different backgrounds through their life cycle of their education and change the way they work and the areas that they work in. So let me show you the kind of areas we've published in. So one of my researchers, Alex Houghton, who is hopefully maybe listening, he's excellent with data analytics, and he provided us this nice lollipop diagram. And what he's done is he's looked at the 18 people that have been working on Trend previously and now, and actually classified through the Scopus discipline. So we used a good base measure, the areas that the Trend group actually publish in. Now, all 18 of us are published in engineering, which is probably understandable. Then you get maths and computer science. But when you start looking at this, we have environmental science, and actually about over 50% of us are published in the social sciences domain. And down to toxicology, veterinary, arts and humanities, multidisciplinary work. So basically, when you look at the work we're doing, because the team is quite diverse and because we work on user-centered problems, in other words, in general, we tend to try and solve problems for industry or problems for society. We tend to be multiple disciplines and work in different ways, and are really quite transdisciplinary, to be honest, in the way that we work. And I'll evidence that through the talk. So Team Trend. Now I'm using the word team because we have a nice sports bit called Team Bath, so I thought Team Trend works quite well. So what are we doing and why are we doing it? So what is our aim? Our aim is to create a transdisciplinary engineering index. Why the heck would we want a transdisciplinary engineering index? Well, the problem we have is what we want to be able to do is solve societal problems. And if I went into a manufacturing company and I said I wanted to improve productivity, I'd work out where we are now, what's my productivity. I'd then say, where do I want to get to? and use particular techniques such as, value stream mapping or whatever to get there. And we can do that all the time. But when we then talk about transdisciplinary engineering and transdisciplinary working, we're being told this is the future and it's there, we need to do this way of working to solve societal challenges. But actually we have no idea how to really assess how TE we are or how TE we really need to be. So if I was an industry person or a project manager, I don't want to be spending lots of money working out, I've got to train all my people to be able to work in a transdisciplinary manner. When actually maybe only one project out of 10 I need to work that way. So I need to actually work out what do we need, why do we need it, when do we need it, and how do we actually do it. When I say I mean the whole team has to be doing this. So from this point, my view is we need to measure something. You cannot improve on something if you don't know where you are just now. And this is where it starts getting a bit messy and a bit complicated. And I'll tell you why that happens. And it sounds really simple, doesn't it? We just want to measure something. We just want to say, are we TE or not? And how TE do we need to be to get to where we want to be in a reasonable time and cost? So it's not that actual simple at all. So when we first came to Modena in 2018 and then we go to Japan in 2019, when we actually all talk about TE, we tend to have slightly different lenses on how we describe it. Some people say we must have social sciences in it. Some people say we must have multiple disciplines in it. Some people say it could only be to solve a societal big challenge, etc., etc., etc. So actually we don't really agree on what it is, and we don't have a very succinct way of measuring what it is. And the only way we can do that is once we know what it is, we can actually measure it. And once we know what we want to measure, we can work out what we have to do. But the one problem with that is we don't want some convoluted, way of working that I have to go through 50 pages to actually get an answer of where I want to go. What we really want is a repeatable method of assessment which is practical and easy to use. Now, naturally behind all that will be a lot of analytics and a lot of work, but when we actually complete this, it has to be something you go, yep, that's what I do, this is how I do it, and it's easily used. But then what should this look like, and is it actually really achievable? Now, I wouldn't be spending 1.8 million of the taxpayers' money if we didn't think it was achievable. But actually, how it looks like and how we do it is still quite a challenge. So if we look at the first year of our work that we did as a trend team, and we're now in year 3, there is actually no agreement, like say, a clear definition of what TE is. If you go to Switzerland, they have one view. If you go to Japan, they might have another view. If you go to the UK and London, they have one view. And you come to the UK and Bath, they might have a different view, etc., etc. And what we did in the first year is do a really thorough analysis of the literature. And there's a paper by Latanzio et al., and it's done by the majority of our researchers at Bath and Bristol. And what they will show you is that the literature is increasing. So when we did an analysis of the literature, transdisciplinary keeps coming in. People are dropping the name in everywhere. They're not necessarily saying what it is or not defending why they're saying it's transdisciplinary, but it is being used a lot, and you can look at Sue's paper to see that. But actually what we then found is when we looked at the paper, when they claimed to be TE, was it really TE or wasn't it TE? We had, analysing what it was quite difficult. And so from this point of view, what we needed to do was actually select some kind of framework or a base framework or a way of analysing, saying this is what we're going to compare things against. And it had to be something, again, that was easy understandable and usable to understand where we are today and how do we measure on what we're doing. So we did select Jantz as our start point. Now, obviously, Jantz is 1970. It is a bit of a traditional approach. It has been around for a very long time. However, it doesn't mean it's not got any value. And in the 1970s, it was really used from the educational aspect. So if you look at the 4 levels of JANTS, the purposes level, we're really going for a societal meaning and value. So if we put it in terms of the day, it might be, I want to have clean water for everyone. Or it might be, I want a solution to the pandemic. I want to create a vaccine and I want it now. And it has been quite amazing what people have been doing when the societal challenge is there. What about the social systems? How do they work? How do people interact? What are they up to? How do we look at the applied disciplines such as engineering? And what about the pure disciplines like the mathematics and the material science or the psychology, etc.? So what we did is we looked at these at a start point, and again there are papers out from the previous conferences that describe how we would actually describe transdisciplinary engineering and what the interactions need to be. So you have to have the societal meaning and value. Where the big debate comes around is what you call societal meaning and value, because that will depend on your lens. So if we look at this current pandemic, societal meaning and value will be sorting out this pandemic, solving the problem, getting rid of it, or having a vaccine or whatever. If I was a company, if you think about all the industry just now at the moment, they're kind of floundering, they're losing jobs, they're losing business, there's companies closing. Their societal meaning and value for them might be around the context of actually we want to stay solvent, we want to keep employing people. So from that point of view, our stance is, yes, you can have the wider societal meaning and value, like I say, solving the pandemic or clean water for all. But we also believe it applies in terms of societal meaning and value from where I might be, from an industry perspective, keeping that industry surviving. So my societal point is the boundaries of that company or whatever we decide to look at. It is my belief that if we create a proper index, it will be transferable depending whatever context we're working on, just the boundaries will actually change. So by using this JANTS, and we have adapted it slightly, and again other papers will show that in detail, we now have a means to classify and categorize research projects, etc., whether they're TE or not. And that's really quite important. Now, to achieve that, we've had to do multiple analyses, and I do mean multiple analyses on looking at papers, looking at projects, looking at different ways to categorize things, to cluster things together, to determine what are the key factors that are important to be recognized whether something is TE or not. And we're still in the progress of completing some of these works, and they will be coming out for publication. But what we do now have is a top-level set of criteria to utilise in our assessment, and that is actually quite important. Things like skill sets, things such as the training that's required, the education that's required, the industrial context that we're working in. These are all things that we see at the kind of top-level categories to be investigating initially. And we've done that through a number of industrial interviews and analysing the academic literature. So rather than you having to listen to me all the time, what I am going to do throughout this talk is do a couple of presentations. So one of our team members is Glenn Parry from Surrey University. And obviously he is going to be talking about some work he's been doing relating to COVID-19. And that will show why, against JANTS, why he believes his work is a transdisciplinary engineering problem, and he's correct. So I'll let him chat to you for the next few minutes, and you get a little break from my voice as well.
Hi, I'm Glenn Parry. I'm Professor of Digital Transformation at the University of Surrey in the Business School. I've been working on a COVID-19 tracing app called ShareTrace, led by Case Western University. And the team really is transdisciplinary. We have computer scientists, we have business people, we have designers, we have general engineers. Initially, the team formed around a hackathon and really was quite diverse, coming from many continents. Now it has slimmed down quite a bit. It's mostly now UK and predominantly people from the US. So following Gibbons, I'd really describe the research as transdisciplinary, working very much together in mode 2, because we're driven by the development of a specific application, a tracing app, with a very clear goal in what we're trying to achieve. If we think through the different levels, starting with the empirical, the app we're creating really does need to measure, and what we're trying to measure is we're trying to measure illness, and then we're trying to measure transmission. If we now look at the pragmatic level, we're trying to solve technical questions. So when we're tracing somebody, are we using Bluetooth, GPS, or maybe both? We're building it on a phone. Can we use Android and iOS? There's certain technical questions to solve around Bluetooth and GPS being active when the phone's in standby, because we want it live all the time. We've got to consider the database that's being used. Is it going to be centralized or decentralized? Is processing happening on the phone? Is data stored on the phone, or can we store it in the cloud? There are issues around battery life, which brings in, you're looking at power engineers, you're looking at data management, you're looking at computer science. And obviously the business model behind that. How do we make this thing stack up? Who's going to pay for it? How do we get adoption? Those are the sort of questions we're asking there. So if we look at the normative level, the social design of the system, how do we ensure we protect people's privacy and yet at the same time provide them sufficient information to help them protect themselves against virus? So we've got to look at this social interaction, the behavioral use of the system, and to ensure we don't alienate people within the community because of their use of the app. So then we look at the purposive level, the meaning and value that the system creates. Well, there's value for the government because it helps hospitals understand the spread of the virus and the potential numbers. But really, we've got to look at the value it's creating for the individual, because a lot of people won't be keen to give up their privacy to share some data. So how can we create systems so that they give up minimum amounts of privacy, that it's not invasive, but also that it really creates value for them, that helps them protect themselves and their community. So there's a great deal of understanding around the business model, value co-creation required in that space. So you can see there's a lot of thinking behind this that really does cut across all those levels, because we've got to solve all those problems simultaneously in order to create an app that is acceptable to the community. And that's truly a transdisciplinary challenge.
Now, if I go on to another example, one thing that happened when the pandemic came is we had to start thinking about how can we rapidly react to things and actually solve, again, a societal problem. And across the whole of the world, personal protection equipment had a big issue, wasn't it? There was a lack of it. We couldn't find it. There wasn't enough of it. There wasn't the right kind of equipment required for people to undertake the jobs they had to do. And so if you look at things such as PPE, what you're really trying to do is you have to get people, one, to trust what you're doing. You have to get people to believe in what you're doing, and you have to get them bought in with multiple stakeholders, and both the social aspect about, will we use this equipment? We're going to be dealing with a dangerous disease that we have to worry about. But the other point as well is we had to start thinking about is if we were creating this kind of new technology, and in this case it's not new technology, it is actually very simple technology, how do we actually understand the user needs? How do we make sure we're designing things quickly and appropriately? Now, the example we're about to show you here is some PPE that was created with the University of Bath and Bath Spa University for our local hospital and wider field, etc. And what it reminded me of, if any of you have ever worked in the defence sector, I know it's not quite the same that we're comparing here, but if you're in the defence sector and you have your soldiers getting killed in the field because basically the equipment is faulty, in the UK we have a thing called the urgent operational requirement. And what that does is sometimes if you're designing something new, it could take 2 or 3 years to get it through the system. It's just so slow, to be honest. I think it's the same everywhere. But if we're designing something that's an urgent operational requirement, it can be days to weeks to months. It is amazingly quick because all hands get thrown to the deck. Everything comes in. Looking at the safety, the aspects, everything gets considered all very quickly. And suddenly things move quickly in terms of legislation, getting CE marking, getting everything changed. The rule book gets turned on its head because we have a societal need. So for the defence sector, the societal need is not having our soldiers killed. For the lack of PPE and the PPE requirements across the whole world was actually not having our care workers killed. So this gives you some examples of what Bath has been doing and Bath Spa University with the local hospitals. And again, I believe it's transdisciplinary because we have to understand their needs and their requirements, and it's for a societal benefit.
Hello, I'm Lisa Cheek and I'm Director of Nursing Midwifery here at the RUH. Personal protective equipment, PPE as we know it, has been in the news a lot over recent weeks. And even if you weren't in the healthcare setting, you would have heard a lot about the different sorts of PPE, such as masks and gowns and visors, and some of the other vital equipment that we need that's been essential during this pandemic. Keeping our patients and our staff safe is always our priority. We're following the guidance from Public Health England to make sure that we've got the right supplies of the right equipment at the right times so that we can continue to provide safe, high quality care to our patients in a safe environment for our staff. We're receiving PPE through our national NHS supply chain. However, here at Bath, we're also very lucky to have the fantastic support of our wider community, who's helping to supply and boost some of our key essential items. It's important that our PPE meets the right specification. And so in particular, we've been working with our local universities, the University of Bath and Bath Spa University, who have been using their skills and expertise to produce disposable visors that we can use and fluid repellent gowns. Alongside this, they're also able to produce things that will actually help our staff to be able to wear the PPE more comfortably as well. We're very grateful for all of their expertise, for their innovation, but more importantly for all of their support.
My name is Professor Richie Gill from the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the University of Bath. When the COVID crisis started, we got in touch with the hospital and asked how we could help, and the hospital was quite keen to get some protective equipment made. So the main thing that we're making are these face shields, and it's made from an A3 piece of acetate, and we copied the design of the existing face shields that were used in the hospital. So the standards that you have to be able to meet is to make sure you've got adequate coverage. We've created a 3D print of a standardized head form that's used to check coverage, and we're also doing droplet testing. Of course, we want to make sure what we're supplying meets the standards. So one of the things that we were asked to do was to make the wearing of face masks more comfortable. And what this does, it offers a safe and infection control compliant way of safely and comfortably holding the face mask on, as opposed to using a fabric face mask. And we can make about 140 of these in an hour, so they are readily made and disposable. So the RUH also asked if we could help with disposable long sleeve gowns. The RUH provided us specific material which is fluid resistant. We're now set up to, together with Bath Spa University, to use their facilities, and we've got enough material delivered today for about 4,000 gowns.
Over the last month or so, Dr. Lunt from the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the University of Bath and I have been in touch. We've worked collaboratively in the production of face shields and other PPE, and I've been overwhelmed with the support, the time and the generosity of the university and their donors in supporting us in delivering this enormous challenge. So on behalf of intensive care, theatres, anaesthesia, surgery and the emergency department, thank you to you all for your time and generosity in protecting us from tens of thousands of high-risk patient contacts. Thank you all very much indeed.
So the reason I'm showing you these projects is they were things that actually had a societal need and requirement. And when we look at one of the things, if I was looking and reflecting on it, obviously we're being reactive and trying to solve a problem that we have now. But we might have wanted to be able to work out, were we ready to go? Could we have done it quicker? What skills and disciplines do we need? A week quicker could have saved more lives. So surely we should be able to assess where we are and be able to work out what our strengths and weaknesses are and where we need to go. And what type of discipline, I can never say the word properly, what types of disciplinarity did we need and where are we with that goal? Can we get there? And if we weren't there, how could we get a way to improve it and know what we needed to get so we could actually get the face shields out there quicker, or we could actually get the tracking system out there quicker so less people got infected. And one way to do that is actually be able to work out where we are and then work out where we need to go. So again, if you think about a manufacturing system, this is no different. How do we measure where we are? How do we know where our end goal is? And how do we get there more quickly? Just slightly a little bit more complicated though. So as I say, our proposal is to actually create a transdisciplinary engineering index. Now when I say that, often people get really twitchy and thinking, well, how can you just get a number? That's not what we're proposing. When we talk about TE index, we're actually thinking of a way where we can actually work out, based on the context, what are the key criteria we need to investigate, work out where we are and where we need to be, and then from there, collaboratively work on a plan and how we get to the next stage. So, I mean, obviously what I put down here is just some example factors, and the question marks on the left is because it may not just be 5 factors, we don't know what they all are. But if you look at some of the work we presented even at the conference this year, the skill level, so the work by Jana that will be described in one of the papers, she's looking what skill level is required, how do we know what skill sets we need, and how do we know are transdisciplinary skills different? And if they are different and important, are they really critical? How critical are they, and how do we measure where we need to be to again meet the end societal goal that we're trying to achieve or the goal of the project? Education and training. What training do we need? Are we getting the right training tips in there? Are we training our engineers of the future? Because we might look at some long-term goals, so how important is that? Now the industry context, now in the picture here, it looks as though we're all nicely on target and everything's great. Now what we do believe, and again it's hypothesizing it, is depending on the context that we're working in, like I say, if we're looking at clean water, and we're looking at clean water in sub-Saharan Africa, the kind of context and industrial context that we're working in is quite different looking at clean water, say, in Holland or in Japan or whatever. If we're looking at Singapore, then water is actually really a scarce commodity. So again, there are different things that we actually do. So depending on the context that we're working in, we might have to actually put some kind of factor in that, because if we're working in an area where education is poor and skill level is poor, but actually the industry is really reactive and dynamic, then we might find actually we can get away with slightly less levels of skill. The other thing to look at is, one thing we're looking, is it not just the people that have to be transdisciplinary? Can we actually have some tools that might help people work in a transdisciplinary manner? So what are the tool sets? Do they enable, facilitate people to work effectively? And the question mark is any of the other factors that we think we might need. Excuse me. And we're not sure what they are yet, and that's what we're currently investigating still. So the example here is just the kind of thing we'll be looking at, and this will help people decide, where are we? Where do we think we need to go? So the black would be based on our evidence, where we think we need to be successful, to get the right set and balance. And the grey is where we currently are. So for TE 2021, because we most certainly do not have all the answers just now, we will be able to present to you the factors that we believe are required for the index. And that based on a whole lot more work that we've been doing and work that the researchers are already doing just now. They're doing a lot of work on clustering and doing a lot of data analytics to see what is required. You'll also have noticed if any of you are presenting papers, each of you have been asked a question by Dr. Latanzio regarding on your definition of TE. So one of the things we need to do is understand what our community, and when I say our community, what you guys are all thinking, what you all believe TE actually is. And depending what lens you look at through and depending on your background and your mental model, you might have different ways of how you might describe it. So when you do answer the question by Sue, and I hope you will all answer it, so every author on every paper, please do answer the question. Just do it from your gut. Don't try and think about giving an answer that you think we want to hear. We actually want your answer about what you really believe. So just use your own voice, your own version, your own words, and we can do the analytics back at home. And we will present the findings for that within the newsletter, the ISD newsletter. And by TE 2021, we'll have gained feedback from yourselves and various wider communities and a lot more work on the educational work that we're doing and from our industry partners, and we will feed back to you on that at TE 2021, along with having some industrial presentations on the work that we are doing. So I'm afraid good or bad, it depends on your viewpoint here. I've only taken about 36 minutes and you've not had to listen to me all the time. So I would like to say thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, please do ask now. Thank you.